Audrey Marie Santo was born to Stephen and Linda Santo in December of 1983. She was the fourth of their children, and at one point in her life, she had an accident in their home. And at that point, when she came home from the hospital, they moved to 64 South Flag Street, which is where Audrey spent the remainder of her life. And during that time, amazing and even miraculous things happened to surround Audrey and her life. What we want to do now is to be able to give you a little background to her life, as well as to give you a tour of her home. This is their home in Worcester, on the west side of the city, where her family was living when Audrey was born, and where they lived for the first few years. Audrey was born on December 19th. She was 10.5 inches long. She weighed 5 pounds and 3 ounces. She came home in time for her very first Christmas in this stocking that you see here on the slide. She was a delightful child. She had a lot of life, a lot of energy. She touched the hearts of her family with wonderful ways. She was precocious, but she was also excited about life. Her older brother was just a little bit over a year older than her, and so they were the best of friends growing up, sharing things like, this is a Halloween picture of them with their older sister Jennifer, and then Easter with the Easter Bunny. But then that following August, a terrible thing would happen. Before that, she had a favorite cat named Noodles, and often he would spend time next to Audrey, enjoying her company and being a close companion. But that August 9th, in fact, in 1987, Audrey was found floating in the pool behind her family's home. She was rushed to the hospital. She had never really lost consciousness, but unfortunately, being transferred from one hospital to another, there was some confusion, and the doctor ordered phenobarbital to be given to Audrey, and the dosage was that of an adult dosage. It created permanent brain damage. It did not leave Audrey in a vegetative state, as many people have claimed, but rather, instead, what it did was leave her with an akinetic mutism, which meant as a result that Audrey had lost the fine motor control of her extremities, her hands and her legs. She would not be able to hold a fork, hold a pencil, to write her name. And then while she was in the hospital, physical therapy broke both of her thighs, and her hips healed in an improper way. She was never able to bend at the waist again. So as a result, Audrey was of a very different state, and yet she was close to the Lord. Her faith in the Lord continued to deepen. And in some ways that we do not fully understand, Audrey surrendered herself to Christ, and his love for her enveloped her in amazing ways. When Audrey was ready to leave the hospital, the doctors and nurses wanted to put her in an institution, and the family absolutely refused. All along, they had intended to be able to take Audrey home. So they moved from this 2-story colonial to a single floor ranch in another part of that same neighborhood. This is actually the garage that became converted into a chapel, because so many people would come because of the amazing things that surrounded Audrey, the power of her prayer, and their desire to be close to the Lord by being close to Audrey. Audrey moved through the house. Her first bedroom was right off the kitchen to be part of the family. Engaged in meals and people coming home from school, and even if they were doing dishes or cooking, she would be part of that. She quickly outgrew that, and so she moved to a second bedroom, which is in the front side of the house. Here she is with Dr. Cooper, who came to do some electronic testing with regard to her motor responses and seeing what they might be able to do, and her mother, Linda. She outgrew that bedroom as well because of her medical supplies, the people who would often come to visit her, ask for her prayers, and be able to feel close to Christ when they were close to her. Here's another picture with her grandmother and some other people who were close to Audrey in her room. And at this point then, Audrey outgrew that room, and so they built a room in the back of the house. And at that point, Audrey spent the remainder of her life in this room. And so here's a picture of Audrey in that room. And now here's a picture of this bedroom as we find it today. What I want to do is give you a tour of this room, to be mindful that all of the things that you see here are things that belonged to Audrey. They were either things that her family bought to her as toys or as gifts through holidays and birthdays, or other things that people brought to her, looking for her prayer, asking a favor, or coming to give thanksgiving for a way in which they felt that Audrey's prayers had been answered and that they had received the favor that they asked from the Lord. What is in front of us is a shadow box filled with all these statues, and the mirror behind it is actually, used to be a window. And this window was where people would look into to Audrey's second bedroom. Once they changed that bedroom into an office for the ministry of the Silent Soul, the Apostle of the Silent Soul, Audrey's room then became, they changed the window to become a shadow box holding her different items. Again, you see religious pictures, favorite saints, images of Christ, photos of family and of friends through the years that have been part of Audrey's life, part of her family's life, who have touched and inspired her in so many different ways. So usually when you come to visit, pilgrims are brought to this room, which was the kitchen, where they would prepare different medicines and other things for Audrey. And then her room was beyond these doors. These doors would close when pilgrims were here, so that Audrey would not be breathing the same air as them to be infected in any way. And then, of course, you can see that there were blinds for that as well, for privacy for Audrey when necessary. So this is the area that most pilgrims are allowed into. Right now, we're not allowing anybody in because of the pandemic. But through these doors, we take you into Audrey's room. You see, to our right is the Tabernacle, which holds the Blessed Sacrament as it is today, as it did in Audrey's life. We'll come back to the Tabernacle. That will be one of the last things that we'll look at. But beyond the Tabernacle, to the left, is Audrey's bed. This is the bed that Audrey slept in, where she lived, and ultimately it was her last place here on earth. It was from this bed that she passed into the loving arms of Christ. The things that surround her here are in many ways the things that surrounded her in her life. Again, these things are gifts from various family and friends through the years. I want to be able to take you through to show you some of these. To the left here, you'll see in the lower left-hand corner is a wooden tabernacle, above which is a statue of the Pieta. This particular place is where the tabernacle was in Audrey's room. That tabernacle has now been placed in the chapel so that pilgrims may be able to venerate the Blessed Sacrament and to pray before that as Audrey did. So that's really the only substantial change to this room since Audrey lived here, and the things that she enjoyed all around her. You'll see the various statues that are here. Again, many of them are gifts from various people, priests, religious, other friends of Audrey's family and her relatives. Some of these belong to her mother and her grandmother. Others were gifts from her family. You'll see that there are religious pictures, images of children. Also, there are dolls and other things that any young girl would have appreciated in her life. To the left of Audrey's bed, you'll see there's a yellow nightgown covering what looks like a chaise. This actually was Audrey's carriage. Because she could not bend at the waist, she could not travel outside of the house. She couldn't go in a car seat. She couldn't go to church. And as a result, this was the way that when she was much younger, they would bring her outside for fresh air, bring her into the family functions to be able to share different events. And so this custom-made carriage was very, very much a part of Audrey's life through many of her younger years. To the left of that is an altar. This was done at the request of the church shortly after Audrey left us to go to the Lord. And so this altar has been there since Audrey's death. It was not here during her life. It now holds religious articles were gifts to Audrey. Many pilgrims come looking for some of the holy oil that miraculously appears here. That oil appears in these vessels, these ciboriums and these chalices. Many of the images that you find behind are images that were gifts to Audrey in her life. Most particularly is the statue of Padre Pio. Audrey had a particular relationship with Padre Pio. This statue was a gift from Mother Angelica. It's a replica of one that was used at Padre Pio's canonization in St. Peter's Square. And Mother Angelica of the Eternal Word Network would often talk to Audrey at least once a week. She would call Linda. Audrey's mother would put Mother Angelica on the phone, and she would tell Audrey what she needed and what she wanted her to be able to pray for. And so as we go into the room, we'll give you a little bit of a view of some of the other things that are part of Audrey's room and the things that she enjoyed. This doorway is from Audrey's bedroom to the bathroom that she used. It also had a whirlpool tub in order to be able to help her with her muscle relaxation and to be able to see that throughout her life, Audrey never had a single bed sore. Hanging on that are many of the hair ribbons that her family would put in her hair when they would bathe her and dress her and be able to make her feel pretty as well as to look pretty. The things that are here in the room are favorite saints of Audrey's and her family, gifts that were given to her again by family and by friends. Many of them are images of Our Lady and of our Lord, but also saints that were particularly favorites of her family and of others. As we come around, you see that some of the medical equipment that was here during Audrey's lifetime is gone now. If you look again on the website with the photos of Audrey in the room, you'll see some of the medical equipment that was used to pull off her carbon monoxide from carbon dioxide from her lungs, and some of the other equipment that was here that of course is no longer here. Some of that has been donated and other of it is just placed somewhere into storage. Again, we see the rest of the room. We see Audrey's bed again, the lift that they used for her, some of her clothing, a desk where the nurses would have made some of their notes, and other things that were part of Audrey's life here. So we come back to the doorway, which most pilgrims come to this point. We'll see once again the tabernacle that holds the Blessed Sacrament as it did in Audrey's lifetime. And inside this tabernacle, there is the host that Father Ubald consecrated, that began to bleed, and since then has also wept miraculously in oil. So you'll see in here that underneath the host, sitting on the paten, there was a glass dish. The glass dish is a little bit less than half full of oil that has appeared from the host. Behind it is what we call the angel host. It appeared miraculously one day. Nobody has ever claimed credit for it, and it too is also soaked with oil, which is amazing that having been in that condition for several years now, it continues to be firm enough to stand on its edge and not to collapse. So this is Audrey's room. This is where she lived, and ultimately where God called her home. And so from here, Audrey, her funeral mass was celebrated in St. Paul's Cathedral on April 17th in 2007. She was buried in New Notre Dame Cemetery. If you were to come today, this is what the house looks like from the outside. We welcome pilgrims, but during the pandemic, we do not allow pilgrims to come inside. Services are held on the first Saturdays of the month in the backyard in the meantime. So we hope that this has helped you to understand Audrey, to be able to appreciate her life and her story, and we hope that when the chance comes, you will be able to come and visit us and to enjoy the holiness of this place. God bless.